While many people are escaping conflicts in Syria and other places in the Middle East, a major proportion of migrants coming to Europe is from Africa. That's why EU leaders and policymakers are holding a summit on Wednesday and Thursday with some 30 African nations in Malta. Expectations are high, but many experts say that despite the billions of euros that Europe is ready to inject into particular projects in Africa, there are many factors showing that tackling root causes of migration there is a huge challenge. Let's now see what the expectations of the heads of states and governments from both sides who are already in Valletta are.
This EU-Africa summit was first mooted 6 months ago after 800 people died when a boat full of refugees sank in the Mediterranean. The EU restored life-saving naval patrols and a surge in arrivals from Africa followed, which was then overshadowed by 500,000 people making their way through Turkey. This means that this summit will look at the long-term problems that drive people to flee to Europe.
It's
about the adoption of an action plan which will fight illegal migration, which will increase the possibilities of legal migration and finding work in Europe, and which will also increase development aid. However, the EU's stated intention to also send back those who do not satisfy asylum criteria is causing some displeasure among some African leaders who see it as unnecessarily cruel. We're talking about people who've often faced death, crossing seas and deserts in appalling conditions. Thousands have died. I think a frank discussion needs to be had about those already in Europe to see about their legalization. The EU promises assurances on illegal migration could lead to increased legal migration for students and seasonal labour. But Africa has reason to be wary of promises.
Europe is still struggling to find an effective response to the refugee crisis, the greatest challenge for the bloc since the debt crisis. However, with the rising of far-right parties in many member states, it is still very unclear if the European Union is capable of implementing lasting and common asylum reforms. My guest here in the studio in Brussels is at the heart of the crisis management, the EU Commissioner for Migration and Home Affairs, Mr. Dimitris Avramopoulos. Commissioner, now we have a summit Wednesday and Thursday in Valletta, in Maltese capital. What are your expectations by this summit?
First of all, to share a common understanding of the situation as far as the refugees crisis is concerned and the migration problem. The African countries must understand that as long as our aid in development terms is continuing, at the same time we need their support and their help in order to manage the migration problem. They have to accept returns in their countries and, of course, to work together in order to create legal ways for the ones who want to come to Europe. By the way, I want to make an announcement today. During the first 2 months of the next year, the Commission is going to present, and I'm working very hard with many people right now, a full comprehensive proposal for legal migration. Because, let me be clear on that, Europe will need migrants in the future.
We know that some 147 people have been relocated within less than 2 months in the context of this relocation scheme and quota system. Isn't this very, very small number? Are you sure that it's still realistic that you have 160,000 people relocated over the next 2 years?
There's no doubt that the numbers are very, very small. But it was just the beginning. As you know, we had the very first relocation operation from Italy 1 month ago and from Athens 2 weeks ago. It is, I would say, a startup. We have a long way to run in order to say that we are satisfied. I believe that as long as we move ahead, and from the moment all member states decide to be part of this relocation scheme and project, things will be better.
But many of them are not responding.
Only 12 countries so far have accepted to be part. But things have started changing. the climate is more positive, and I believe that at the end, everybody will accept to have refugees relocated in their country.
So is this number realistic, the 160,000 people over the next 2 years?
It can become. It can become. But as I said, we didn't start well. And I said it, I was very open, that I was not happy with the very first numbers. But the system, the program, must start functioning.
Let's go now to the other ambitious plan by the EU Commission, which is the hotspots that could help all this huge flow of the migrants and refugees. And many people on the field, especially on the Greek islands, say that these hotspots don't work, at least yet. So is Greece prepared to receive all these refugees during the winter, because winter is coming?
Because relocations cannot work without the hotspots. So it's good to know that the hotspot in Lesbos, in many other parts of Europe, is there to assess all cases and not keep people on the island more than 24 hours. And then they will be transferred to the mainland, and from there to the other members of the European Union. So you say that
Greece will be prepared by the end of the month?
It's a commitment.
To do all these procedures?
Yes. And believe me, during the last 2 months, I'm in a position to know that things are moving faster in Greece.
So are you optimistic for the outcome of the Valletta summit?
You have to be optimistic in this kind of meetings. It's a unique opportunity right now to talk frankly. Let's hope that it will not be one more summit where everybody talks and then they go back home without having done anything.
Okay, Commissioner, thank you very much for being with us.
The pleasure of mine to be with you.